Alohomora, wizards and witches of Hogwarts. Albus Dumbledore here, about to drop some truth spells on you. Expecto Patronum and such. If you're a muggle, click off this video. Anywho, now that it's just us wizards and no mudbloods, this is the official Harry Potter movie ranking. And we ain't talking books in this dorm room. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. This is the ranking of the main Harry Potter movies. There's no Crimes of Grindelwald in this fucker. Strictly movies that came out between 2000 and 2011. I don't want to hear any disputes with this list, so if you've got a problem, you can give it to your owl and send it to someone who actually gives a shit. Before I get into why Chamber of Secrets is at the bottom, I just want to say that I think all of these movies are solid and are definitely a benchmark in terms of franchises, unlike some franchises that we have today. But Chamber of Secrets is definitely my least favorite of the 8 movies. I won't waste much time with this one because I honestly think it is just a fucking massive waste talking about it in the first place, but it's pretty uninteresting in my opinion. I honestly couldn't tell you any moments in here that really stick out to me besides maybe the blood writing on the wall and Dobby. And Dobby is so fucking annoying. The ending of him getting a sock is sweet, I guess, but the movie is just forgettable, and I'm really glad that Chris Columbus had very little to do with the franchise after this movie. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I'm just not a fan of the first 2 movies in general. I just don't fuck with them that much. There's definitely some memorable moments when compared to the second movie. You've got the first Quidditch match, you've got Uncle Vernon burning Harry's letters with that fucked up face that he pulls, you've got the chess match.
Not me, not Hermione.
It's fun, and I think for the first movie you kind of need a childish perspective, and Chris Columbus does a good job with that, you know, considering he directed Home Alone and Home Alone 2, which features Donald Trump. But there's lots of bright colours, and it puts the darker themes towards the tail end of the movie, which I think is probably for the best. It's miles better than Chamber of Secrets, but whenever I do a rewatch, I usually skip the first 2 movies. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. And here lies what I'm going to call the catalyst for splitting up movie finales into 2 parts. Thank you, Harry Potter. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have such thrilling conclusions as The Hobbit 3, Wicked 2, Hunger Games 4, and who could forget Rebel Moon Part 2. Deathly Hallows Part 1 isn't a particularly interesting watch, and I hardly find myself revisiting it if I feel like just, you know, watching one of the movies. I'm a fan of Ron lashing out at Harry and saying what the audience is thinking, which is that the movie is so fucking slow. The spotlight in this movie really only shines on the big 3, Hermione, Harry, and Ron, with even like background characters such as Neville only having like 1 line and about 5 seconds of screen time. But the thing that really irks me about this movie, and this is a spoiler warning, is the fucking death scenes. At the very start, you take out Hedwig and Mad-Eye Moody. They're just gone within the first few minutes of the movie. Hedwig has been in the Harry Potter franchise since the start, and the only reaction we get from Harry is a "No!" And then Hedwig's never brought up again, except for like one little mention later on. I get that it's an owl, but come the fuck on. Dobby's just a CGI character, and everyone had tears in their eyes when he kicked the bucket. There wasn't anything compelling about Hedwig's death, so it doesn't really strike a chord. Same goes for Mad-Eye. I feel like it could have almost just been left out, because when I saw this movie for the first time as a kid, the lighting during the Death Eater's attack sequence, the lighting was practically non-existent. So non-existent that I didn't even see Hedwig get killed the first time I saw this movie. I lived in ignorance of that death for a whole year until I found out that she got killed when I watched it on DVD. Going back to the Dobby point, I really don't understand, like I can understand why they would use it, but looking back, I feel like you could have replaced Dobby, a character that we've only ever had in one other movie, and swapped him out with a different character to be like the transition into the next movie, because part 1 ends with the death of Dobby, so I feel like you could have had a different character in there. You could have had Remus sacrifice himself instead of just killing him off screen in Deathly Hallows Part 2. Fuck it, even chuck Hagrid in to save the day, and that would contrast amazingly with the start of Deathly Hallows Part 1 where he's talking to Harry about part, bringing him to the Dursley house, and then he's taking him away from it at the start of the movie. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it would make sense for someone like that to play a sacrificial part and be a very emotional death right in the middle of the two movies. There's so much more they could have done to make this stand on its own 2 feet and not just operate as a jump pad for the next movie. Fun fact, this was actually the first Harry Potter movie I ever watched, and it was in a packed cinema, and I thought the sequence where Harry and his merry gang of hooligans, when they were searching for the prophecy or whatever, that was peak filmmaking. Since then, it's almost been 20 years, and I've come to realize that this movie isn't all it's cracked up to be. Dolores Umbridge is an even more despicable antagonist than Voldemort, if you ask me, handing out physical abuse and torture methods as punishment for school children, and practically forbidding any kind of fun, which is, by and large, the best aspect of these films, if you ask me. Any scene taking place in the Room of Requirement is such a great watch. Seeing the students learn different spells and rally alongside Harry, it's compelling stuff. I just wish we got to see more of it. Also, R.I.P. Sirius. It's fucked up that a CGI elf's death was more important than Harry's godfather. Fuck you, David Yates. Bonnie Wright cannot act in this. But that's my only real critique with the Half-Blood Prince. Michael Gambon is in the forefront this time around, as we'd really only seen him in very tiny portions, giving Harry a few bits of advice here and there, but now we get to see what Albus Dumbledore has really been up to this whole time. I think Jim Broadbent as Slughorn is a fun addition to the cast, as the bumbling potion bloke with a deep, dark secret. This is the movie where we really start to connect the dots with Voldemort's whole plot and what it will take to bring him down. It's also the most personality that we really see with Ron and Hermione and Harry. The romance between Ron and Hermione is almost at its peak here, and Harry as well, but Ginny just fucking sucks. Why did she offer to tie his shoelaces in that one scene? There is zero chemistry between the two of them. Alan Rickman as Snape is also one of the subtler highlights. He does have a cheesy drop the title name moment at the end when he reveals that he is the Half-Blood Prince, and I always fucking roll my eyes at that. But when he's forced to kill Dumbledore, you can see the pain and regret that he has in his eyes when he does it. So I'd say it's a powerful performance for an underrated installment in the franchise. It's a close race between Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows Part 2 for me, I can't lie, but there's a lot to love about Deathly Hallows Part 2. I know I bring him up a lot, but I'm gonna say it again, David Yates cannot fucking direct, man. It's so fucking dark in this movie, and fuck, it sucks. Anyway, I'm gonna directly praise the character of Snape in this movie. I think the build-up to reveal that he was all along guiding Harry to beat Voldemort and constantly sticking his neck out, potentially blowing his cover time and time again, will never not get to me when his entire backstory is revealed. He's definitely my favourite character in the series after this movie, there's no doubt about it. And I think the battle at Hogwarts is the most amount of action that any of these movies has really seen. While I haven't read the books, I think for a visual medium, this is about as good as you're gonna get when it comes to a couple of teenagers pointing their wooden sticks and having sparks shoot out at a bald guy with no nose. It's a minor thing, but there's a lot of MacGuffins brought up in both Deathly Hallow movies that sort of undermine the whole thing. Dumbledore pretty much left a bunch of cheat codes for Harry to inherit, and it's not like they were brought up in a pre-existent movie. The Resurrection Stone was only brought up in Part 1. If it had been brought up in either Chamber of Secrets or even Philosopher's Stone, there'd be more of a reason to go back and give those movies a rewatch. But it feels like a bit of a, just give him a stone that can bring him back to life after he dies. It's a world of magic, who fucking gives a shit? But look, I'm willing to turn a blind eye just because I don't really care that much. But on the other hand, there's not enough Hagrid in this movie for my liking. With Ralph Fiennes and Brendan Gleeson both pulling up in Mike Newell's Goblet of Fire, we're just one cast member away from an In Bruges reunion, and I think that's really cute. Goblet of Fire was one of my favourites growing up, more than likely tied with Order of Phoenix for the one I rewatched the most. There's a lot on offer here in terms of fun little games, which again, I think are the best part of these movies. Within the first few minutes, we're in a Quidditch match, and the entire backdrop of the movie is the Triwizard Tournament. For me, the game set in Hogwarts Hogwarts have always been the most exciting part of the series. Say what you will about J.K. Rowling, but you can't deny she made up some fun stuff for the Hogwarts gang to get up to. We finally see Voldemort in this one as well, albeit he doesn't really do much in the ways of tension when you've seen this movie 25 times, but me as a kid, I was shitting my pants when Peter Pettigrew chucked that baby Voldemort freak into the cauldron along with his own fucking arm. The feud between Harry and Ron was kind of anticlimactic. Ron was mad at Harry for all of 20 minutes and then they just went back to being friends. It made for a new dynamic, but it would have been cool if we sort of stretched it out a little bit more, but I guess that's what the books wanted.
Piss off.
Coming in at number 1! It's the best in the franchise, and it's not even fucking close. Prisoner of Azkaban works as a movie in a solid franchise, but also as a standalone story. A large amount of credit goes towards director Alfonso Cuarón, and you can feel a shift in the style when compared to the 2 previous movies. Chris Columbus, while he's good at adding a flair of childish wonder and curiosity, by the time we've reached the 3rd movie, which is where the shit really starts to get sinister, the characters are basically forced to grow up, and the audience has to go along and mature with them, I feel. David Thewlis and Gary Oldman as both Remus Lupin and Sirius Black are some of the best casting that the series ever decided to do, with basically everyone in the fandom agreeing they're 2 of the best characters. It just adds to the movie's success. It's a small tidbit, but I think part of what makes this movie so good for me is its ability to keep some goofiness within the dark fantasy setting. An example being when the Whomping Willow is attacking Harry and Hermione, there's a brief instance where Hermione grabs Harry by the shirt while she's being swung around by the tree, and Harry pulls this Looney Tunes ass move where he looks down at his shirt up to the camera and is then flung around with Hermione. It's goofy stuff like that which is never really seen again in the franchise after this one moment, which is a shame. And while I get that they're trying to put magic into the real world and they want to make it look darker, I think it's alright to suspend belief at some points. It'd just be nice if we saw something like that again in a later movie. But David Yates is a hack, so it was never gonna fucking happen. And, mischief managed. Fucking, that sucked. But that's it. All 8 Harry Potter movies ranked from worst to best. Stay tuned for 10 years from now when they release the Harry Potter TV show, and I rank every episode from best to worst. Oh boy, I can't wait.